Welcome to the Scaringi Law Lunch Break. This is your time of the day to learn a little bit about the law while you enjoy your lunch. A federal district court judge ruled early Friday morning that the White House must immediately restore the press pass of CNN reporter Jim Acosta. This is a temporary order and will stay in place unless there's an immediate appeal, while the underlying legal action continues. However, because the judge ruled in favor of CNN, that means the judge believes CNN is likely to prevail on at least the due process part of its lawsuit. We'll talk a little bit about that in more detail in a minute. The judge ordered both parties to file a joint status report next week on how to proceed in the case. CNN argued that the White House infringed upon Acosta's free press and due process rights under the First and Fifth Amendments to the U.S. Constitution, respectively. CNN's arguing that it and its reporter has a right to a to a press pass, and that the White House was wrong to peremptorily confiscate it without notice in a hearing. That's what due process means: notice and a hearing before a government infringement upon a constitutional right. The White House contended that it enjoys broad discretion concerning press conferences, including whom to allow in and whom to exclude. Further, the White House said it can exclude reporters at any time for any reason. Now, I have a bone to pick with Judge Kelly, who issued this ruling. I'm not so sure a White House press pass is a property interest or a fundamental right that a reporter holds. I think it's more of a privilege that can be revoked. But anyway, that's not the way the Judge Kelly ruled in the case. In any event, the White House Correspondents Association said the government's stance is wrong and dangerous. Simply stated, if the president were to have the absolute discretion to strip a correspondent of a hard press pass, the chilling effect would be severe, and the First Amendment protections afforded by journalists to gather and report the news on the activities of the president would be largely eviscerated. That's according to the White House Correspondents Association. Now, in my view, Jim Acosta was not gathering and reporting the news. He was arguing with the president, trying to make the president accept Acosta's opinion about what phrase was acceptable to describe the migrant caravan. That's not gathering and reporting. That's the reporter trying to make the news. In any event, the ruling is limited to the due process claim. The judge ruled that only on Acosta's Fifth Amendment claim, saying the White House didn't provide Acosta with due process required to legally revoke his press pass. The judge referred to his ruling as very limited and didn't rule on Acosta's larger and more important for the ultimate outcome of the case, his First Amendment claim. Importantly, the judge left open the possibility that the White House could still revoke Acosta's press pass, but only after notice in a hearing. And it looks, from what happened today, that that's the direction the White House is headed. We'll talk about that in a second. First, Ted Boutros, an outside attorney representing CNN, said, "This is a great day for the First Amendment and journalism." My response is that's a false statement, considering the judge did not rule on Acosta's First Amendment claim. Also, on Friday, Judge Kelly entered the temporary restraining order. As soon as the judge did that, the White House sent a letter to Jim Acosta outlining its preliminary decision to suspend Acosta's press pass at a future time. The letter cited Acosta's conduct at President Trump's November 7th press conference, where he asked multiple follow-up questions and didn't give up the microphone right away. Remember, he had that kind of tug-of-war with the young female intern. The White House letter states, "You failed to abide by basic, widely understood practices." The letter was signed by Sarah Sanders, press secretary, and Bill Shine, chief of staff for communications. So here, the White House is basically following the admonition of Judge Kelly. Judge Kelly said, hey, White House, you don't have any rules in place, so you can't take a press pass when the pass holder doesn't know what rules he or she may have violated. So here's the White House starting to lay down some ground rules and saying, oh, by the way, Jim, you violated them back on November 7th based upon your conduct. So we'll see how that plays itself out. CNN is crying foul, of course. They issued the following statement: the White House is continuing to violate the First and Fifth Amendments of the Constitution. These actions, meaning the letter the White House just sent, threaten all journalists and all news organizations. Jim Acosta and CNN will continue to report the news about the White House and the president. And Also, CNN ran back in the court just an hour or two ago requesting an emergency hearing because it fears the White House is going to suspend Acosta's press pass based upon that letter they just sent as soon as the temporary restraining order expires, which is 14 days from the date it was entered. So CNN is requesting a court hearing on November 26th, next Monday, in which they will request that the TRO, the temporary restraining order, be converted into a preliminary injunction, which lasts for a significantly longer period of time while the underlying case works its way through the civil justice process. So there's where we are right now. Some very recent case developments on Friday and then just hours ago. We'll keep you posted as this lawsuit continues to work its way through the civil justice system. It's an important lawsuit about the First Amendment and the Fifth Amendment. We'll see ultimately how the judge rules. Well, that's about all the time we have today for the Scaringi Law Lunch Break. I hope you learned a little bit about the law. Thanks for listening and enjoy your lunch.